Hello, hello. I'm testing everything here. Welcome to my first stream. I'm shifting things out. Just gonna remove some of these things. Another different scene for us. All right, let's get going. We are almost at the time to get started. We have my guest joining soon. Let's see. This looks fabulous. My background. Let's see what we got. Looks like we gotta edit this name of this topic today. I have thought about this, and everybody's gonna love today's topic. We're just getting set up right now. So everybody that's watching. Today we are talking. Nobody tells you about saving money, especially if you're leaving or forced out of corporate. I'm so excited to have today a friend of mine join us for this conversation. Because when we think about it, we never planned to leave corporate America, right? We're always thinking of, this is going to be it. I'm going to work until I retire. And the reality is that that's not the case. We're not always going to be have all the things figured out. Sometimes, you'd be surprised. Things come in, and then boom, you're not really where you thought you would be. I don't know how you guys feel about these, but I think I need a movie. So I'm waiting for my guest. I'm just gonna change things out a little bit as we're waiting for her, and then start this conversation right now with you. So when we think about this, I'm thinking, coming from somebody who left corporate America and is no longer in corporate America, basically moved into entrepreneurship, not out of forced out, not planned out, but I don't want to say forced. And the reality is, in a sense, it was forced because I didn't plan for it. When you don't plan something, it's basically forced out of you. So if you're thinking about leaving your corporate job, or you are, you're being forced out, this is a conversation nobody's having. I like having conversations everybody's trying to stay away from. So this is a conversation nobody's having. Today, we're going to break it down. The truth about saving money, financial preparation, and what actually happened. What actually happens when your paycheck disappears. I invited my friend, wealth strategist and expert, Maggie Arboleda. He is an insider of corporate America. She's held multiple jobs in corporate. She is also a wealth strategist. So we're going to ask her some uncomfortable questions that she probably doesn't even know, but that's the whole idea. The idea is that we're asking the right questions, and that we're asking the questions that nobody's asking right now, that we're covering those topics that everybody's uncomfortable touching base on. So if you're serious about, building independence outside of your corporate job, this conversation is your starting point. It is not it is your starting point. If you're making a move this year, if you're thinking and considering, get ready. There are some questions that you can ask here. I will have Maggie's contact information as well if you want to touch base with her separately later on. But this conversation is really position yourself as the bridge between corporate and entrepreneurship. Owning your conversation, creating some urgency and some clarity on what that is. I didn't have it when I did it, so it's been a struggle. I don't want you to go through that. Been there, done that. I don't want you to go through it and be there. So let's talk about clarity. Let's talk about that conversation. Let's talk about what nobody tells you. What nobody tells you when it comes to saving money before you leave your corporate job or before you are out of this job, right? Because you're forced out. So good morning, mi gente. Good afternoon, wherever you are. If you're here right now, I need you to stay with me because this conversation might change how you look at your job, your money, and your future completely. Like, no joke aside, you're gonna see it differently. Nobody, and I mean nobody, tells you the truth about saving money. When you're in corporate or when you're in any other sort of job, whether it is in or out of corporate, nobody's telling you about saving money. And let's not get started if you're a Latino. That's even worse. The conversation even gets less talked about, right? You gotta work, you need to save money, and if you don't have money, you cannot buy. And if you learn that you can buy without money, that it becomes something that you don't know how to, and you get into trouble, right? Meaning you acquire too much debt, right? So they tell you save 3 to 6 months, build your 401k, be responsible. But what happens when you want to leave? What happens when you're forced out and you get that little piece of paper? Yes, a little piece of paper, or that conversation, that top conversation that says, we are relocating your role, we are passing your role, we are doing XYZ, your role is being eliminated, you have the opportunity to look, etc., etc. What happens when that happens? You have a plan? Is that plan enough? As you can imagine, the plan is never enough. You always have to overcompensate. That's the way I see it. You always overcompensate on whatever plan you have in place. And you always need plan A, B, C, D sometimes, E in other times. So, and if we think about it today, we're going to talk about that truth. That truth of we're never prepared, or we're never prepared enough. We always say, I'm going to leave corporate America, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And we never do because we don't have all our ducks in order. So I worked in corporate America. I've seen how decisions are made behind closed doors. I've seen how people talented, when I say talented people, get replaced, laid off, burned out. Yes, burned out. And at the same time, I built businesses. I've coached entrepreneurs. I've seen what happened on the other side of the spectrum when you're building, when you're studying, when you have the money to build, and when you don't. And there is always a gap. There is always a gap. A big gap between what people think they are prepared for and what the reality actually is, right? Or what the reality really looks like. So here's some truth that I want to share with you before anything. I want to give you a few truths that most people don't say out loud. Truth number one, right? Saving money is not the same as being prepared. You can have money saved and still panic when your income stops. You hear that? Saving money is not the same as being prepared. Just because you're saving money doesn't mean that you're ready for what's to come. Your lifestyle, and this is truth number two, your lifestyle becomes your trap. The more you earn in corporate, the harder it becomes to walk away. So you take more. Those little discrimination efforts, you kind of ignore them. Those little harassment, tendencies, you ignore them because you don't want to walk away from the large income that you have, and you become comfortable with the money, complacent with the situations that you are put in because you need that money. You want that money. Okay? That's truth number two. Truth number three. Fear will control your financial situation and decisions. Again, fear will control your financial decisions in situation. When you don't have clarity, you don't know where you're going, you hold on longer than you should. So you hold to things more than anybody else because you have that fear that is not happening, right? Or that if I put it in there, it's going to walk away. Or I'm going to lose it and I'm going to need it. So a lot of if scenarios that don't let you move with clarity. So remember, fear will control your financial situation and decisions. Be wise about it. My final four, and I'll probably give you a few more later on, but right now, my fourth truth is nobody teaches you how to replace your income. No one. Even if you pay money, nobody teaches you how to replace your income. And trust me, there are a lot of people that claim that they will teach you how to do that. The reality is that they teach you how to keep a job, not how to survive without one. And that's a problem. And then you fall into the funnel of the million options to replace your income, where everybody's trying to get a piece of you and a piece of money to get you to that little 1% of or 10% of people that are actually making money. But the reality is that it is cutthroat. And the reality too is that you're going to have to pay money for that. Knowledge is not just power when it comes to replacing your income. It's also the monetary portion that will get you there, right? So the more you pay to get access to certain things and certain information, the faster you move along the way. Don't pay money. Don't do what a lot of others are, doing of let me do all of this at no cost, and you will stay stuck in the same place. Because everything eventually will require for you to put money down or to put money in. Everything. I don't care what anybody has to say. Everything will require an investment. If you're starting a business, you will be required to have an investment. Investment of time, investment of money, and investment of assets or knowledge. Everything requires an investment, no matter what other people have to say. It's plain and simple. Plain and simple. So that's why I wanted to bring in Maggie. And Maggie is a phenomenal individual. So let me give you a quick introduction. And I'm going to just add Maggie to the stream so you all can see Maggie because I know you're all waiting for her. So let me add Maggie to the stream. Welcome, Maggie. And that's exactly why I'm bringing someone who has lived this completely from a different angle. Because it's one thing for me to talk about business and entrepreneurship, but it's another thing to understand how money actually moves, how to protect yourself, and how to think strategically about your financial future. So today, I'm bringing this amazing woman, Maggie Arboleda. She's a wealth strategist who has worked inside corporate systems. She's built financial strategies too, and she understands both sides of the coin. That's rare. Someone that can speak from both angles. And for us, individuals that are trying to grow our business or that are trying to start our business, this is crucial because individuals like Maggie can understand what most people don't. So, Maggie, welcome. Please tell my amazing audience who you are. Tell us about you.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny, first of all, for having me. I hope my sound's okay. Are we good there?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here, Jenny. And I'm so glad that our friendship has brought us here to collaborate and be able to share some knowledge. You're absolutely right. I have been on both sides of the equation. And then, there's definitely the way that I introduce myself professionally and then the way I introduce myself to friends, right? And so I'll do a little bit of both here. So I am a Cornell graduate and I've spent over a decade working in Fortune 500 companies. I've worked at places like Walmart, Adobe, Apple, and I've led HR programs and talent development programs within those companies. And I've really seen firsthand just how corporate environments, how they operate, how decisions are made, and how those decisions can impact people's careers. Now, and today, I am a licensed financial professional as well as a wealth strategist, and I'm helping high earning professionals really protect and grow their money, especially during career transitions. Um, your career and your financial strategy are really more connected than people realize. And I think we do a lot of great work as professionals building up our professional acumen and our career, but we haven't necessarily built up the level of financial literacy that we need. And I've certainly been in that place. I remember starting my first role where I was receiving RSUs, and I didn't even know what it meant, honestly, in the beginning. I had to do a lot of research and begin to understand what that was. When should I sell? Should I hold on to it? Like, there's a lot of if ands that happen with that. But the other side is, yes, I am this professional person and have these credentials, but I'm also a mom. And I'm also the daughter of Colombian immigrants who came to this country who had great savings, culture, and my parents were amazing at really teaching me how to stretch a dollar, but they had no idea how to invest, how to protect their money, how to grow their money. That is something that I really started taking on as a personal development project of myself for myself, and decided, hey, I'm going to continue this route because I realize how important it is, not only for me, but for other folks, and really how these tools have helped me during times of transition, right? Where I have had to either leave corporate America or have been forced to leave corporate America. And because I had these, financial savvy skills that really helped me continue during that transition. So,
All right, mi gente. Maggie is being so light on everything that she's done. I just put a QR code on the screen. You can learn more about Maggie by visiting her website at maggiearboleda.com. She is an amazing woman that not just is a single mom, that is a strategist. She's a licensed producer. She's been in corporate America. She's a Cornell graduate. She has touched on building curriculum and doing a lot of other things. But today we're going to be taking advantage of her in a different way. And we're going to get the inside scoop from Maggie, not just as a wealth strategist, but also as someone with experience in corporate. So if you are thinking about leaving your job, if you already have been forced out of your job and you're trying to figure things out, you're in the right place. So let's get to this. All right, mi gente, let's get into it because Maggie is going to get us started on what we need to know. So, what is the biggest lie people in corporate believe about saving money, Maggie? Because I think that's a big one. When we think about we are in corporate, we get this huge paycheck, right? And we're getting all this money. A lot of times we spend more than we need to. Other times we don't save. There or someone tells you put whatever you can on your 401k, whatever is left is yours, live your life, enjoy your income. What's the truth? Like, what's the reality? Because one thing is being there and having that paycheck every time. And another one is when you're like, oh God, I was forced out. So now what do? I don't have that paycheck anymore.
Yeah. And that's the reality of entrepreneurship as well, right? It's not a steady income, it's an ebb and flow with entrepreneurship. But yeah, I think there's a misconception that there's a lot of stability within having a corporate role. And I think more and more that's the reality for people, right? Where previous generations really had that stability and career growth. We no longer have that, right? There isn't necessarily a clear career path anymore. There's instability. Our retirement plans have changed. The generations before us had pensions. 401ks were originally created to supplement pensions, and now 401ks are really the only retirement funds that most people have, right? And so I think that that's a misconception. While you should absolutely take advantage of any match that your employer gives, like beyond that, you shouldn't be contributing more than that to a 401k. And really speak to a financial professional or licensed professional in order to set up different areas where you can begin to set aside a retirement plan. And then I would say, in terms of, you touched up upon a few things, but also like just living beyond our means. We don't have to keep up with the Joneses. We don't have to keep up with the Kardashians. Like, it's okay. We don't have to do all of that. I did move into corporate and made some really great money, but I honestly just stayed really living like when I first started my career. Honestly, I've been in my same New York City apartment for about 14 years now. So if you think about it, and rent stabilized, my rent is, going up with whatever it is that the percentage is allocated for that year. Like, did I need to move into a brand new luxury apartment? I didn't need to do that. And honestly, it's given me a lot of peace of mind and a lot of flexibility to be able to take that excess income and invest it in other avenues that have given me that financial stability and that financial sort of safety net, right? During downturns and to be honest, during layoffs, because I've certainly been part of corporate layoffs. But I would say that, definitely live under your means and have processes for yourself, right? Have systems in place, right? I'm not a firm believer of like, let's create a very strong budget and let's stick to this budget. And because the reality is that that's a lot of work. I don't do well with that. I'm a person that's like, just give me a routine and I'll follow it and that's it. But I don't want to have to be like, even for like meal planning, I think about it. I'm like, I don't want to have to count every single calorie that I'm eating. I can't do it. It's too much. I just need a system of like, this is what I need to do, right? And so we allocate percentages. You save a percentage for your savings, a percentage every month to your 401k. If you have a Roth, which is amazing, I recommend, if you're in the income bracket where you can open a Roth is a great tool because you are growing money there and you've already paid taxes on it. So you don't have to pay taxes on it when you retire, which tends to be a big issue with 401ks and traditional IRAs, right? When the person then retires, now they're left with this tax bomb, right? And yes, you're older, and so your tax bracket is lower, but the reality is that we only expect taxes to go up and be higher and higher as the years pass by, right? And that'll all be dependent on your current age and when you decide to retire. So now that you're in a lower tax bracket and that taxes are the lowest that they've ever been, pay off your taxes now if you can. Just get it out of the way. That's kind of been like my policy with that. Um, but I would say that those are the things that we're not necessarily thinking about, and also learning how to invest, and that's going to be different for everyone depending on what age you're at. You'll be able to sustain um, more risk. The younger you are, the older you are, the less risk you should be having within your portfolio, right? Because you have less time in case that there is a market downturn. The average right now that they're saying is about 14 years to recover from a market downturn. So if you are in a place where you don't have 14 years in order to recuperate that money, you really have to start thinking about, okay, let me find a way to move this retirement funds into something that is future proof.
Oh my God, you said 14 years, right?
Years.
14 years. Like, just
Years.
make a note of that. 14 years for this. I cannot even think about 14 years from now. Like, we're talking about, I want to be on the beach. I want to be traveling. I want to be resting. I want to be, I don't know, like somebody taking care of me that I don't have to do anything at all. And whatever I do, I can do it from wherever I am in the world. Let's not forget, with AI, that might be a possibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this leads me to, let's do reality check, right? Because we don't think about reality check often.
Yeah.
Maggie, you worked inside corporate at a high level, recruiting, learning and development, building programs with hundreds of employees. What do you think, or what do people think corporate is doing for them versus what is actually designed to do in terms of financially, like what I think when I go into corporate versus what the reality is, right?
Yeah, I think I touched upon that very lightly in the beginning, but you're right. It's good to emphasize that. But I think we think that it's giving us stability, a clear career path, long-term financial security, a retirement plan through our 401k. The reality is that many people don't even have enough in that 401k in order to retire. And that's why we're seeing people retire later and later in life. And honestly, loyalty in exchange for loyalty, right? Like, you work hard, you grind, and you're going to be compensated. And that's not the truth anymore. That's just not how corporate America works, right? They are really designed to build the company's value, build value for shareholders. And although it sounds, difficult and like if they have cold hearts, the reality is that that's just business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as they're worrying about their business, you're worrying about your business, right? You are your business.
Yes.
You are your brand. You are who you're looking out for, you and your family. And that's the reality of it.
And that's something that we entrepreneurs should be learning from, right? We are our company. We are the shareholders. So we should be looking at that. We should be seeing that, yes, in a negative, but also in a positive. What can I take from that? And when you think about that reality check, Maggie, if someone is thinking about leaving or they're forced out, what should they realistically have in place financially? Like, what are, if you were to think about 5 things, and you mentioned earlier some things such as, be frugal, don't keep up with the Joneses, right? You don't need to. But what are those specific things that individual should realistically have in place, already built in financially, to be able to survive whatever length they will be off work if they don't decide to be an entrepreneur or launch their own venture, or if their job search takes longer than what they expect.
Yeah. So the reality is that, and this has been true for a few years now. The higher your income, the longer the job search is, right? And for folks making over six figures, it can take up to a year, and that's an average, right? So if you think about it, you should have savings of about a year. That's very challenging for most people. And so rule of thumb has been like 3 to 6 months, but even that I think can be very, very challenging. Um, that said, there's something that happens during the layoff process where you receive a huge ego blow. And a part of that ego blow is also, okay, well, what am I going to do? And what do I have to do in order to make some money right now? Right. And sometimes, especially when you've had a very senior role, you've managed people, it's hard to step back and do something that you feel might be menial. But it is a means to an end, and there's no shame in that. There's absolutely no shame in that. Continue to upskill yourself, and if you need to go and get a job to just get your bills paid, that's okay. Go ahead and do that. I think it's very challenging during this time because you have a transition of identity. And so I would say that, in addition to having these funds, I think there's an internal shift that needs to happen within us when we are in this process. And there is a morning, and it's hard and it's challenging and it's like a dark night of the soul kind of thing. Um, and you go within and you start thinking, hey, I've done this, I've done that. Like in my case, I'm like, I raised the kid by myself, and I went back to school and I did my master's and I survived, the pandemic doing all this stuff, and landed back on my feet. And you kind of have to remind yourself of that, right? Like keep a record of all those kudos and continue to build yourself up because honestly, not only is there a financial concern, but the emotional concern that happens during that time is really difficult. And I will say that is something that has kept me with my head up. Meditating has kept me with my head up. Having a workout routine has kept me with my head up. I mean, at this point, it's not even about losing weight; it's about my mental health. I need the dopamine that I get from going and doing a workout early in the morning and having that checked off my list. It creates a different energy for myself, and I can approach the day from a different mindset and a different frame of mind versus when I sleep in, right? Sleep in, I'm like, I feel like I've completely disappointed myself, which is another blow to the ego and confidence. And so I'll even say it for me, right? During this entrepreneurship journey and really moving into being a licensed financial professional, I've thought about how that might affect my professional reputation. And there was a lot of ebb and flow in how I did it and how I executed because I had this concern, right? There was a part of me that really identified as a corporate employee. And I loved what I did. I loved working with people. I loved working with early career talent. And even though it's not something that's completely off the table for me, um, I was very concerned about what my peers would say, think, and perceive me, and how that might affect me if I wanted to return to the corporate environment. And I realized something from a conversation that I had with a really good friend who has started his own marketing company. He started it about 10 years ago. And he said to me, he's like, hey, 10 years ago, I was in a marketing role in corporate America. And he's like, I always wanted to do something entrepreneurial. He's like, I wanted to sell Kindle books. He's like, that's how I wanted to start. And he was like, my peers, they mocked me. They were like, we have real jobs. We don't need to do that. He went on and he did it anyway. Is that how he really made his money? No, it's not. But he started an online marketing company helping people gather leads He's turned it into a $1 million business. From what I understand, he's generating about 250,000 a month, and he has an offer right now, right, to sell his company. A guy that's not even 40 years old. So when you start worrying about what your peers think about you, what people are going to say, it creates these roadblocks that don't allow you to move forward. And so I will say, like, just move forward. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Like, you'll recover from them. You'll learn something new and you'll learn a different skill. My friend went from selling Kindle books to starting an online marketing company. So, and he started two more companies after that, which, are very, very new and very initial phases, but he seems to be doing very well with them as well. So I would say that. And I think that that's a huge challenge for us, for people who are coming from corporate America, because we're taught to be very careful and protect our personal brand. And so that is definitely a mind shift that has to happen, and an adaptation that has to happen, not only as you transition, but I think it's the reality of where we are today, of where we are in our careers, and understanding that corporate is not a foolproof land for everybody.
And I want to ask you this question because that was exactly what I was going to ask. I was going to ask you about that identity shift that we need to take. What changes, not just financially, but mentally, someone goes through when they move from an employee to an entrepreneur, from being employed on their own term to being forced out and having to make a rest decision, right? So I think you touched on that. So, and then you were going into the whole fear and control situation. How
Yeah.
should people think about risk when they no longer have that steady paycheck? Which I think we all go through it when we have been in corporate, when we have, that steady paycheck, saving money without any strategy in mind, and then everything happened, and then you panic. Your
Yeah.
job is not your safety net. Your skills and systems are. The
Right.
paycheck feels safe until you have it. Once it stops, it's no longer safe. And most people don't plan their exit, they just react, right?
Yeah.
This is happening. I just need to react to it. I just need to resolve. It's important, and I think you said this earlier, it's important to plan. It's important to not freeze on that fear. But Maggie, how should they think about risk, about no
Yeah.
longer having that steady paycheck?
Yeah. So I do want to say this and preface it by saying everyone is in a different place. Everyone has different responsibilities, and therefore, we should all be talking to a licensed financial professional in order to get a personalized strategic plan. That said, more generally speaking, I will say, of course, have some type of savings. Ideally, you have that. Ideally. But if you don't, then it's time to roll up your sleeves. And maybe if you got to drive Uber, then you got to drive Uber. You got to do what you got to do to make ends meet. Even if you have the savings, honestly, it's not a bad idea to do that, right? To continue to bring some kind of income in, it'll distract you from the problem that you have at hand. But I think that, Jenny, I've myself have been in this situation, and luckily I have had savings, but I've also realized somehow the bills get paid. Somehow the bills get paid. And it comes from somewhere. And you got to have like the faith that it's going to happen and that you're going to be okay. You're going to survive. This is a time of course, challenge. And things can get, challenging and hard, but you'd be surprised. Like you find a way to make it work and figure it out. Also, there are a lot of really great people that I think step up in your life when you're in challenging times. And I think it's okay to rely on folks. It's okay to rely on family um, when they can be there for you, like friends and family. Um, I've been lucky enough to be able to kind of harvest those resources and just understand like the value and the trust that people have in me, and the love during these challenging times. So I would say that. I would say hold on to your faith, hold on to that so tightly, and know that with certainty you're going to be okay and your bills are going to get paid. And sometimes we do have to leave aside what, sort of our ego and the perception that we have, because if we think about it, we're probably judging ourselves harder than other people would judge us. um, and that's the reality.
And I think we all do, right? We judge ourselves harder than anybody else can judge us, right?
Wow.
Nobody nobody tell us, but we do. Consciously or unconsciously, we do it. Whether you choose it or not, that's up to you. But um, continuing with our conversation, especially for those high earners, right? This is a wake up call because when
Yeah.
you make so much money and you see yourself in the situation, you're like, oh my God, now is when I know that I was making 150, $200,000, $500,000, whatever the number is.
Hmm.
You worked with, professionals making good money. What are the biggest mistakes you see them make? Like, because they make mistakes, obviously. Because once they are without a job, then they have to have a job in order to continue with keeping up with the Joneses. Because remember, they were, if they have been in corporate for 4 or 5 years, even longer, and you'll be making, let's say $100,000 a year in 10 years, that's $1 million. Where's your $1 million? Where do you put that million and a half $1 million to be able to stand up today and continue to live like if you lived, $100,000 a month? But in a lot of times, that's double, triple the amount. So for those individuals, what are the biggest mistakes you see? And I think I probably alluded to some.
Yeah, I think, I would go back to the living under your means, right? I think we live because we think we're making more money, then we're like, okay, I can buy a bigger home, or let me buy a new car. I can go get my nails all the time done. The hair, this other treatment, we stop being creative about how we can do things and relying also on community, in order to get things done, right? Like, especially in the US, we have a culture of if we need something, we need help moving, we need to get to the airport or whatever, like we're just paying for this stuff
Yeah,
instead
we're
of
paying.
instead of relying on community and being a community member, right? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
also have to do that for other folks if you want that. And if you can think about it, like in New York City alone, it probably cost me $80 to get to the airport, right? If you think about it, I'm making well over six figures. It's not a big deal, right? But couldn't I spend those 80 bucks instead of taking my friend out for dinner and have them drive me to the airport?
And this is exactly what nobody tells you about, right? This is precisely what no one tells you you should be doing. Nobody is telling you you should be saving money. Nobody is telling you you shouldn't be ordering your food when you know how to cook,
Right.
or just eating out every single day just because you can, because your money allows it, right?
Yeah.
People think saving money is enough, but what you're saying is it is really about strategy, structure, and mindset. It's really about, you know don't wait until it's too late. People don't realize this, but sometimes, this conversation never happens before it is too late. So we're giving you this now, right? Before it is too late, because we don't want you to wait until it's too late, right? Um, if you have questions about financial strategies, if you want to have a free conversation with Maggie, I do have her QR code in there. Please go in there. You can check her out, check all of her accreditation, everything that she's done on her website, maggiearboleda.com, or by just scanning the QR code on your screen. To everyone watching, like, if you're thinking about leaving corporate America, or if you have already been forced out or decided to leave for whatever reason, this is your wake up call. This message right here, and what Maggie and I are telling you, is precisely what we've been preaching.
Mhm.
You need to be strategically prepared. You need to know that saving money is not the plan. A strategy is the plan. Write it down. A strategy is the plan. And you need to have those conversations with individuals that know you but don't know you in regards to your finances, that can call out your BS, right? This is exactly the type of conversation we're going to keep having. You need somebody in your life that actually needs to tell you, no, nice try, this is how it's done. No, nice try, this is what you should be doing, right? Because that is what's going to get you to succeed as an entrepreneur. That is what's going to get you to go to the next level wherever you are, whether you're growing, scaling, building, starting, wherever you are, whatever your situation is today. Having people that have the knowledge, have the skills, and that have been there before, that can teach you the way, is what's going to push you further. So, Maggie, if we were to list a few things that you want to leave everybody with after this conversation, that is really, really insightful, and I hope a lot of people are able to benefit from it.
Yeah.
Please give us your wrap up and your closing of what should they be doing, right? Whether you stay or you leave, how do you create those options for yourself? Because this is what everybody wants. How do I create options for myself that prepare me to either stay with a paycheck or build a paycheck, right? Because that's really what it is. Corporate doesn't owe you a stability. You create your own. Freedom is built before you need it. So what
Right.
can you tell us?
Right. So I would, and really speaking to those folks that are either in a transition or inflection place within their career and are either leaving corporate America for entrepreneurship or are switching to a different role, I would say look at your 401k. Make sure that you're bringing your 401k with you. A lot of people just kind of forget about it, and and although you shouldn't be spending that money ahead of time, there should be a strategic plan for your 401k. And so I'm happy to speak to anyone that's in that position and help you come up with a plan. The other part is, Jenny, and it's not sexy, but it's the reality: insurance. Jenny,
Yes.
insurance, right? A lot of people think, oh, my corporate job gives me, life insurance. If anything were to happen to me, they would cover it. And yes, absolutely, while you're working at corporate. But if you leave your role, you no longer have that coverage. And you don't want to wait until you're older and have health problems where you won't be either covered or you'll be paying a lot of money in order to have the same or even less coverage than your corporate employer provides. And I know that I've had that conversation with numerous clients and people where they were even paying into their insurance in their corporate company and they weren't able to carry that over. Right. So they left and that was it. That was the end of it. And so while insurance, I think, is a very, very powerful vehicle, I think you want to ensure that your family is taken care of should anything happen to you. And even if you don't have a family, right? We all think about, um, I've been in this situation, Jenny, and I'm sure your family has as well, where we have someone pass away and everyone's trying to scramble and figure out how do we come up with $25,000 in order to bury this person. And it's a
That
challenge.
is in every
Huge-
family, right?
It's a huge challenge, and it's a burden that we shouldn't be leaving to our families.
Mhm.
And you don't want to wait too long in order to create that protection for yourself and for your family. And so it's definitely not a sexy conversation and not a conversation people want to have, but it's really, really important.
Thank you, Maggie. This is your wake up call once again. I know it's, lunchtime for some people, but if you're thinking or if any of this has been of useful information to you, please let us know. Again, I left Maggie's website on the QR code. You can always find me on YouTube at I am Jenny Camacho. You are absolutely welcome to join me once again tomorrow at 12 o'clock. I will be streaming live from the bakery because, as you know, I work at the bakery on the days that I'm not in the office. So tomorrow I'm at the bakery and I am going live from the bakery at 12 o'clock tomorrow. So I hope to see you there so that you can see the reality of entrepreneurship, because a lot of people think that entrepreneurs are the ones that look so beautiful and make the millions of dollars. No, you need to roll up your sleeve and you need to work. Are there some entrepreneurs that actually already rolled up their sleeve and can enjoy the fruits of their labor? Absolutely. I'm not there yet. So I hope you can join me as I get there. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you enjoyed today's stream. It was my first stream live. So excited with Maggie. Saving money is not the plan. A strategy is, once again. And this is exactly the type of conversation we're going to keep having. So make sure you follow, you subscribe, and share this conversation with anyone who needs to hear it. Because you might not need to hear it, you might not need to see it, but there are others that will benefit from it. So, mi gente, because we are not living life by accident, not anymore. We're planning it, we're strategizing, we're doing it with purpose. So, pa'lante always, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, all.